it later.
Yeah, I'm going to. Hi, everyone. This is Rebecca Tripp, and today I'm going to introduce you to my friend Tom Hayes. I met him quite a few years ago now when I gave a Silva Ultramind training, and he's going to share with you some of the things that have happened to him. And we've been in contact for quite a few years, sharing some of the magical miracles that happen in our lives using some of the techniques I've taught and that he's familiar with. So take it away, Tom.
Well, as you and I have talked over the years, first of all, I'm a big believer in Steve Jobs' concept of connecting the dots and how he says that we never know where the dots in our lives are going to go looking forward. But when we look back, they all make sense. Well, right now we're going to look back to, I think it was what, 2004, 2005, we did this when we
Oh,
first met.
yeah, probably. I started teaching it in 2004,
Yeah, okay. So
way back in the beginning.
yeah, we're talking about 15 years at least.
Right.
And I forget again, we're both very familiar with serendipity, synchronicity. I forget how I was always fascinated with silver mind control. I think, the story that I keep telling you is I'm a professional comedian and I was doing a college show one night. And all of a sudden, this guy walks up to me and asks me, it was after the show was over. He wasn't even at the show. And he asked me if I knew a ventriloquist. And I said, yeah, I know a couple because of all my work as a comedian and also as a magician. I met a handful of ventriloquists. And I asked him what it was for. And he said, well, he was teaching a course in ethics and he wanted to use the dummy as a way of using a dialogue to convey to his class. And so I questioned him on, part of my minor in college was philosophy. I asked him what kind of ethics. Was it Nicomachean, Aristotle's ethics, or Kant's categorical? And he was kind of blown away that this guy with a rubber chicken would know things like that. So he told me, he says, no, he says, I said, how did you know I'd know? He says, I took a course in civil mind control and I just knew you'd know. And so I said, well, I've always been fascinated by that because it was very big back in the 70s and 80s, I imagine, was when it was at its peak, wasn't it?
Well, it started in 1966. And
Yeah,
yes, it was very,
that
very,
was the rage. It
yeah,
was on the tip of everybody's tongue,
right.
and everybody was using the techniques. And so he told me, excuse me, that it helped him write his thesis, that he was stuck for a topic. And so he went into silver mind control and he did the countdown from 10. He felt like he was on the elevator and he went from 10 down to floor one. And, but he went below, he went down to the basement. And he said he found in his mind this corridor and he walked down into the corridor and he opened up this door and there was this, walked into a library and there were these beings in the library. And they went over to, he sat down in a chair and he says, this was all the imagery he got in this meditation. And that they brought over a book and the book had the title of his thesis. And he said, oh my God, this is what, and if you know anything about thesis, that's one of the toughest things is to find a topic that nobody's ever presented before. And then he said after that, he would go down every day and he'd go into the library and they'd take the book and they'd put it in front of him. And he said, I literally plagiarized my entire thesis. They would turn the pages of the book. And he says, I actually copied my thesis from the spiritual world. And he got his PhD. So obviously, I got very psyched to find out about civil mind control. And it was, I forget whether it was an ad or how I saw and found you. But yeah, I think you were right on the border of Rhode Island, or maybe even in Rhode Island. I think you were in Providence, weren't you?
I gave this seminar right in Providence, downtown
Yeah.
Providence.
So we went into the room and there was a handful of people. And first of all, I was blown away by the good looks of the instructor. In fact, that was before Me Too and everything else. I think I actually flirted with you Um, Everybody got uptight. I said, "Oh, wow." I said, "This is gonna be some class."
Well, remember the class was all men.
Yeah, and
All men.
they and of course, everything is, with all the talk about sexual harassment and everything, these guys froze, and hey, I'm a comedian and I'm a flirt, so I thought it was fun. But yeah, so we spent, what, 2 days
Mhm.
doing all of the
Okay.
meditations, and, so some, amazing, and we've been friends ever since, and, in fact, I took it a couple of times with you,
Right.
and one of the things that I think, I read your book and I thought the book was fascinating. I still think it will be a movie someday because of the story. But I'd like to, because we're doing this as a testimonial, I'd like to read this review I did on your book, which when we talked about it a couple of days ago, and I reread it because I wrote this in 2014. It blew my mind what I wrote. So here we go. Unlike other spiritual or metaphysical books, this book is held together by a compelling story. I know Rebecca Tripp. That does not mean that I would flower a review with accolades to appease a friend. In fact, we all know the quote, "A prophet is never accepted in his own land." It is hard to distance oneself from someone with whom you relate on a daily basis as being capable of something profound. The everyday mundane activities of routine have a tendency to blur what lies below the surface. This story takes the spiritual travel in all of us on a roller coaster flight to metaphysical truths. We experience Rebecca in her almost wide eyed, innocent youth, following her dream to be free. Her beauty and charm are her passport through borders closed to most. Wow, can you believe I wrote this?
Oh, I
I
will.
don't. She becomes a stew for stewardess and sees the world, both physical and spiritual. She encounters teachers and guides and lessons that elevate her to rarefied heights and soon plunge her to terrifying lows. Each undulation leads her to deeper lessons and truths, propelling her to the next adventure of her already charted life. We, as the reader, vicariously get to see the blessings and pitfalls of each illusory lesson till Rebecca arrives at the ultimate truth. Let go, let God. And I put God with a period after each one, and celebrate freedom from fear, attachments, and trappings. Buy a copy, sit back, relax, strap on your seatbelt, and ready for a takeoff to spiritual heights. Wow, I'm impressed. I still, I had to be, I had to be in an altered state of alpha state to have written that because it's pretty damn good
It is.
because it's the truth.
Thank
That
you.
that book is all of that. It isn't just somebody teaching principles. You teach it through this wonderful story of, how you first saw the UFOs, how you were in New York and somebody taught you creative visualization, how you went through your spiritual healing, through Christian Science, and then through all of the ups and downs that ultimately led to and lead to this moment here.
That's right.
And one of the testimonials, I think, so there are fine points that sometimes we have to iron out, because this isn't simply, oh, Rebecca and I have the same wavelength all the time. We don't. And because we're friends, and because I equate Rebecca to being my coach. If we live in New England, and the New England Patriots, if you're going to learn anything about coaching, all you had to do was watch the New England Patriots for the last 20 years and to see the genius of a guy like Belichick. So as great as Tom Brady is, he still needed that guy on the sidelines to take them to the heights that they reached with 6 Super Bowls, and then Tom just got a seventh. Well, Rebecca acts as my coach many times, and recently she helped immensely. I was stuck in a paradigm of being stuck in Boston in an area that had once been a real hip neighborhood, a live neighborhood, and got gentrified and basically died. And I equate my story to being a frog. You can't boil a frog by throwing him in hot water. You got to throw him in cold water and turn up the heat. Well, I became that frog that the heat got turned up on me and didn't realize I was being boiled. And Rebecca woke me up one day and said, "You got to get out of there." And that wasn't even in my mindset. That wasn't a possibility. And she said, "Your time there is over. Wake up." And she didn't even give me a chance to debate it because she called a friend of hers, a real estate agent. Next thing, this guy's on the phone. And between the two of them, they convinced me to take this giant leap, which I couldn't conceive of. But again, this is where the dots connect. And long story short, I sold my house. I'm free finally of all of that and moving on to the next chapter of my life. So not only does Rebecca have all of the things that I said in this review, she has the practical side to her, which sees when she sees somebody that's going and maintaining a lifestyle that's not an optimal one, she's quick to point it out. And she threw me a lifeline and saved me. So that's my current accolade to you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
we've been through all kinds of things together, and that was your latest miracle that you got out of Boston in the nick of time.
nick of time when cities are collapsing, and
Right.
it's not just because of COVID. I saw the signs, but I needed the push, I needed the guidance. And for those people, one of the things I learned, it's just fascinates me how people are afraid to seek guidance and first of all to seek it and then to listen to it and then use it. And I got my lesson when I was married, my first marriage, and I had a house. And one day I'm cleaning out the house. I actually had a bunch of wood delivered, and I'm sweating, stacking all this wood. It's like 95 degrees. I was during the oil crisis. And like everybody else, I was panicking at the time that I was going to freeze to death. So I bought a wood stove and did all of that. And as I'm doing this kid's head sticks in the door. And a young kid from the neighborhood goes, "Hey, buddy," he says, "you need somebody to mow your lawn." And I went, "No, I do it myself, you know." And he started to walk away. And then the voice that we always talk about, the voice says, "Stupid, that's an angel." Stop him. So I said, "Hey, wait a minute." I said, "You want a job?" He says, "Yeah." I says, "You want to stack this wood?" And some ridiculous price. It was $5 an hour or something. So I hired the kid to stack the wood. I said, "What am I doing? I got a full-time job. I got kids. There's an opportunity cost for me to do this." So the kid stacked all the wood for like 20 bucks. In the meantime, I was doing shows making 200 or 300, in an hour. And so I hired him to do the lawn. But when angels come along, they're sent for a reason. And so our connection came in one of those angel connections. That's the way I look at it. And if you don't pay attention to it, you're kind of deciding that you're going to live a rough, rough road in a rough life. So you're my angel. And I feel sometimes I'm your angel.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
You've
and
uplifted me many times when over the years when
yeah,
things are changing.
so if anybody's thinking of, I can't I can't overemphasize the fact that you're the person, you're the go-to person. Really, that you've lived it. See, one of the things I got a chuckle out of about reading your book is, we've had these ironed these things about the law of attraction a few times, and I get very. In fact, we just had on our revolutionary path. You called me up recently and you said, Rhonda Byrne has just written a new book. I think you're gonna really resonate with what she has to say. And what Rebecca was saying to me was, I got very disappointed in the law of attraction when I found out it didn't work all the time. It works some of the time so unbelievable at times you will swear that you've figured out the secret of the universe and that you can manifest anything and everything you want. And what I said in the review that I just read is the beauty of Rebecca's story. It's life. It's a true story. She's at the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. But and nobody's going to escape those things. That's what I think everybody who's stayed this long on this Zoom meeting has to understand. You're not going to escape life. They're going to be the ups and downs. But if you are in tune with the principles, you're going to be able to get through them because you understand what's really going on. You understand that you're connected. We always talk about the difference between the third and the fifth dimensions.
That's right.
And that once you start to enter the world of the fifth dimension, you're not operating on a plane that everybody else is. You let go of fear. And no matter what, because life will happen. There will be COVID. So there will be pandemics. There will be job losses. There will be deaths. There will be financial hardships. But that won't matter because as long as you're connected and you learn to let go and let go of fear and let God, just what I wrote in the review, things will happen the way they should.
And my philosophy, as you well know, is there is always a solution.
Exactly. Well,
it may not be the one you want, but there's always a solution, right?
Well, one of the things I find fascinating with us is we come to the same books, whether by our own individual, and then we reconnect and we work out the intricacies or the nuances of those books. And one of the books that we found was the 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 large volume, the one the Course in Miracles.
I knew you were going to say that. I almost said it for you.
Yeah, we found the Course in Miracles. We
found
found that together, but we
right.
found it individually. You found it and I
Right.
found it.
Yeah.
And we got back to it. And basically, we agree with the message, which is there's only two choices, fear or love.
Right.
And there's always, always, always only one problem always, separation from source.
That's right.
Then you and I have learned to go to source.
Yeah. And what a perfect time for people to dig into that understanding, because there's a lot of fear out there right now.
They're petrified. This is, because I'm a storyteller, right, and want to write novels and screenplays, I've studied story, which is another evolution in my spiritual path. And what I've learned in every single story, there comes in the hero's journey, and this is what Joseph Campbell talks about. In the hero's journey, sooner or later, he's going to come to the dark night of the soul when all is lost. That's life, folks.
Yeah.
There's not some magic formula where poof, all of a sudden, these challenges and these adversities go away. They're always going to come because there's always lessons to help us evolve to higher levels. And this is the dark night of the soul for so many people. And if you're trying to do it alone and you're dealing on a 3D level, you're going to get lost.
Oh, absolutely. I think back on all the great teachers I've met in my life, and if they hadn't shown up when they did and been there for me, you being one of them, it would have been a very, very difficult journey. I think people need coaches and healers and people that, have broken through to the fifth dimension in their lives right now.
Well, let me just say this to the viewer. Whoever's viewing this, if they think this is an accident, they're in big trouble. There's a reason you're watching this video. The universe, God, your higher self is trying to tell you something. That if you don't listen to what both Rebecca and I are trying to tell you, and if you're lost and you're looking for answers, you're looking for guidance, and if you're going to be like I could have been when that kid showed up and said, nah, I'll mow the lawn myself. Nah, I'll stack this wood myself. I would have ignored the angel. And so this could be your angel moment, folks. This is your moment to say, and trust me, just as the money I spent having that kid work for me saved me so many hours, so many opportunity costs. When you try to do it alone, and you can, but it's gonna be
Yeah.
hit or miss. You won't have that anchor to say to sort these things out. You can read those books, and but if you don't have somebody to like, we're fortunate, we can bounce them off and iron it out and argue and disagree and then synthesize. It's all about synthesis, antithesis, this, and then synthesis again. And that butterfly, the caterpillar, the butterfly.
Right.
So my recommendation, if you're listening, pay attention. I
Oh,
can't
good.
recommend anybody better to walk you through the next few years here.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Tom. I think we'll
My
wrap it up with
pleasure.
this because thank you so much for your testimonial. And it's always great to see you. So
Yes.
I'll post this on Facebook and on my, I have a YouTube channel called Inner Power Training that I'll put it on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
And then we will go
Well,
from there.
good luck, and it's going to work out for the best. It always
Thank you.
does. All
Thanks
right.
so much.
Enjoy the day.